Well, hey everyone, welcome back to our campaign components series, where today we are doing the monster form. Now right up front, the people who are going to be most interested in this form are probably people who make up their own monsters, but the way that books write monsters up is usually not really convenient to go through when you're running a game at a table, I don't think. So you might want to take that monster and import his stats onto here, where you can also write down all the little notes that are going to make this encounter your own. A lot of books write up the monster with its description, its behaviors, and its stats at the front, and I don't want to sift through all that when I'm trying to narrate what's happening to the PCs. So my form starts with 3 different kinds of things that can happen. The first kind is what I call the setup. What do you say as you're kicking off this encounter? The one part of the encounter that you're definitely in control of. And that's divided into what do the players see and what actually happens. You might need both, you might not. Now, what players see is not the same thing as the monster description. We'll get to that later. Those are distinct categories because sometimes a part of the monster is hidden. Maybe you got some kind of a man-eating plant up in the trees and it's this big, it digests its victims this way. But what players see at this point is just vines coming down and grabbing them. Then following that initial what happens, you have a space for what happens next. The twists and turns of the encounter, I think of them as stages. Maybe it's in a collapsing environment that becomes more and more dangerous as the combat rounds go on. Not triggered by anything the PCs are doing, but it's just happening as part of the encounter. Maybe you're throwing a complication at them, like more monsters show up or wake up. Like maybe the monster has a special move that unlocks partway through. Or maybe you just have some rolls you want the whole party to make at certain points. This becomes your map for tracking how far through all of that you are. Then you have extras. This is another category of things happening. It's not time-based, just another complication or circumstance you wanted to throw in there. Really, any of the same kind of things that I just gave as examples of stages would fit here if you're planning to use them as monkey wrenches that you're throwing into the situation rather than an inevitable ticking clock. So now we move on to your regular bestiary type stuff, which I divide into 2 kinds, what the monster is and what the monster does. This is where you can put your full description in as much detail as you want, maybe even have snippets of it that are available to PCs who make some kind of a knowledge roll. And maybe this is just notes to yourself, maybe this is stuff you want to elaborate on after the initial setup, or maybe some of it's actually revealed in as a bullet point under stages. Then you have behavior, you know, what does it want, what does it eat, what attracts it, what is it scared of, how it thinks, how it moves, where is it from, who created it. All that nature show stuff that may not come into play in the encounter, but it might have been your initial idea when you came up with this beast, or maybe you just want to write it down for its own sake. That's okay. Then moving along, you have what does it do in the encounter. This is where you have the monster's basic stats, of course, but this is also the place where you write down special moves or abilities the monster has, the kind of things you might want to throw in to raise the stakes. If any of those moves have their own weird mechanic, you can write it down in mechanics. I think of moves as things the monster can do that are still pretty basic variations of standard mechanics. And mechanics is something that involves dice or chips in a way that you don't usually use them. Something that even if it isn't unique in the system you're playing, it's practically unique because it's the only time tonight that it's going to happen. And you don't want to have to go look that up. So that is the GMGenie monster form. I hope it streamlines your creative process and helps you find exactly what you need when you're at the table. The rest of this playlist has forms for every other kind of gaming component you could possibly need. And the rest of my channel is full of game mastering tips on writing and running your game, so go check that out. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you around.